Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. Now, for a long time now, the SNP has been very concerned at the very fact that there's not many men going to prison for the R of women, and they're trying their best to do something about it. One of the things they're trying to do is to remove justice. They want to take juries away from these particular trials so that the establishment then is in charge and says whether a man is guilty or not. It's not up to the people. It's a removal of a protection, really, because it then means that the establishment will arrest you, prosecute you, and punish you. Now, everyone in the judiciary is against that, and I mean literally everyone. No one, all the way up from the lowliest trainee solicitor, all the way up to the head judge, in the country. They are all against it. It's only really Angela Constance and the SNP government who are for it. And of course, the latest argument against it is that it breaches human rights. And of course it does. Because what you're effectively doing is saying to these judges, you have a quota, you must send men to prison. And it isn't a case that these men are particularly guilty. It's merely for the sake of political expediency. So they can point to the numbers and say, hey, look, we've improved the number of men going to prison. They may not be guilty, but hey, the numbers look good. And that's where it is. And of course, it is a very difficult trial. Perhaps if the SNP government invested more money in the actual policing and investigation side of it, and that the prosecutors were on board with it, then those numbers would increase sort of organically rather than artificially, and at the great risk of putting innocent men in prison, which we have seen very recently with a man released after 17 years in prison for a crime he did not commit. But it was expedient to keep him in prison because they didn't want to admit they'd got it wrong. Anyway, we'll take a look at this, see what's going on. Now, as it stands, the SNP want to give judges a quota system. And if you have a quota system, then regardless of whether you're innocent or guilty or not, a judge is going to look and say, if I don't hit my quota this month, I could be losing my job. Okay, yeah, you're guilty, But, Your Honour, I wasn't there. I can prove I was in a different country. Yeah, but you're the current one on the list and I've got to hit that target, so off you go. And you can't say it won't happen. As I say, we know miscarriages of justice happen. But the SNP aren't interested in justice. They're interested in what the optics are. Anyway, the SNP risk breaching human rights law with hated plans to axe juries in R trials. The Scottish Government's plans for juryless R trials were criticised by the organisation who represent the country's top judges, who joined lawyers and barristers as well in speaking out against the proposals at every stage. Like I say, from the humblest sort of junior lawyer to KCs, now top judges, they're all saying it's wrong, it's not giving justice, and you're removing justice from the people. Ultimately, the point of a jury is that it is the people administering justice. It is not the executive. You're not getting guilt by political influence. You're getting guilt because the people think you're guilty. That's the difference. Anyway, the Scottish Government is risking breaching human rights laws by axing juries for R cases. It is one of the SNP's executive's most controversial proposals in their justice reforms, as ministers want to pilot juryless trials. Unfortunately, no judge is going to sign up to do them. The judges have said they refuse, and the KCs have said they refuse. And if you've got no judge and no KC, and you're sitting in a court, not a lot is going to happen. Anyway, the idea is being roundly criticised by many in the legal sector, with concerns raised that it would be undemocratic and was insulting to jurors. Now, the senators of the College of Justice have voiced their opposition that the plans may not meet fair trial requirements when it comes to European Court for Human Rights. In other words, they're about to break the highest law in the land. The ECHR currently overrides all laws in the United Kingdom. And that includes, I'm afraid, Scotland. Juryless trials were proposed to tackle the low conviction rates, and it is one of a wide-ranging number of reforms being consulted on, including axing the not proven verdict and also reducing jury sizes from 15 to 12. as part of the Victims, Witnesses and Justice Reform Scotland Bill. Now, I don't really have a problem with reducing it from 15 to 12. That doesn't really bother me so much. What I would suggest is perhaps keeping 15 there, but the core jury of 12, but you keep 3 reserve in case one of the jurors is ill, has a heart attack, or for some reason has to be, dismissed. You've still got the 12, the quorum of 12, because you've got a reserve that you can bring in. That reserve having heard and seen all the evidence and the arguments and things. So there is that as a possibility. Again, with the not proven, that's a difficult one. I actually kind of like the not proven because it kind of sends the message, yes, we can't prove you did it, but we all know you did it. And it's kind of like that. Although you could argue that could be a stigma. That's a slightly more difficult one. I don't really have a strong view on it. I think it can go or it can't go. It doesn't really matter. But as for the jury, that absolutely, positively has to stay. A pilot would take place, which would see anyone accused of R or attempted R stand trial before a single judge or sheriff who would make the final decision on their guilt. However, hundreds of lawyers and advocates have said they would join a unanimous boycott of the pilot. In fact, every single law society across the whole of Scotland has said it is rejecting it without exception. And so it is never going to happen anyway. Now, the intervention from the organisation which represents the top judges in Scotland could cause a sensational U-turn from the Scottish Government, who have repeatedly defended the proposals. A total of 36 judges make up the Senator of the College of Justice, and they raised issues with the plans, because of course they did, because these are very intelligent men, very experienced, and women, sorry, I'm not being sexist, these are very, very experienced men and women who have been in the legal profession their whole lives. They've risen through the ranks, they know exactly what they're talking about, and they've looked at this and they have been basically horrified at these proposals and have said no. And there's nowhere for the Scottish Government to go. What are you going to do? March these judges into a court at gunpoint and tell them you must sit and hear this case? If you did that, they just go, not guilty, throw case out, not guilty, throw case out. You can't have justice at the end of a gun, can you? The response, they said, the pilot scheme amounts to a court set up by the government with a limited lifespan and subject to examination and review by the government. That may not be an independent tribunal. It may not comply with the requirements of the ECHR Article 6. It may not be within the legislative competence of the Scottish Parliament under Section 29(2) of the Scotland Act 1998. It said further, the combination of such a court with judges who have no security of tenure in that court may not satisfy the requirements of a fair trial. In other words, we can put in judges that do not have security of tenure, which means if they don't deliver, we can fire them. That is not a fair trial. That is a trial by a dictatorial state. Find enough guilty or you lose your job. Diversity, or the lack of it, when it came to making decisions was also raised by the judges. They wrote, the majority of judges are in the late middle-aged male from a white Scottish ethnic background and are educated to university level. I'm going to suggest that I don't want a judge who has not got a university level degree. Now, only because if you want to become a judge, you've got to have a law degree. How can you... that's number one. Secondly, predominantly white. Scotland is a 98% white country. So if you want to put 2% non-white in there and be representative, that's fine. Nobody's going to object to that. But the problem is, where are you going to find your 2% non-white to sit there? Find them. It's not an issue. Colour isn't an issue. Nobody cares. As long as they've gone through. And as for middle-aged, well, yes, of course they're middle-aged. You don't walk out of school and become a judge. You have to do your screw. You have to go at this level, KC, go through years of experience. You don't want someone who has not got years of experience sitting on the bench. As for men and women, well, that's material. Whoever applies gets the job. If it's predominantly men, why aren't women applying for the job? Now, I'm not just saying this because I happen to be a middle-aged white man. I'm saying when that is the pool, that's what, you know, you can only get the fish out what are living in the pool, you know. You can't go to your village green and hope to haul out a marlin. Anyway, some judges in the college are in favour of the proposals as it could prevent juries being influenced by myths and highlighted the low conviction rate for this crime by juries. Yes, but you just make sure that when you're doing this as a judge, you tell them about the myths and you explain it. This isn't an issue of justice. This is an issue of people not doing their job, surely. And if you are a person, now whether you've committed it or not, literally whether you've committed it or not, but if you are an individual accused of this crime and they say, would you like to go up before a judge rather than the jury, say no. Say absolutely say no. And especially if you are innocent. Because a jury will hopefully see through the innocence, will have enough doubt. Whereas a judge may just have a little quota to tick. It's unbelievably bad. And it's this crime now, and then it'll be another crime. And then we'll extend it to this, and we'll extend it to that. Until eventually it'll be all crimes heard by a judge, no right to a jury trial, and justice denied. There's a reason why jury trials are held all around the world. It's because it's the best system. Now, sure, you commit a minor crime, you go to a magistrate's court. Yeah. You stand there. I've been there, speeding and things. Yes, Your Honour. No, Your Honour. You do it because it's just expedient. You know, you walk out, and in my case, you kiss your KC, you kiss your barrister because he's managed to retain your licence. I won't go into details, but let's just say 11 points. Not anymore, they've gone, but at the time. But that's how it is. You accept that there. But when it's a serious crime, when it's a serious accusation, and it's something that you know you could possibly go to prison for, oh, no. Jury trial every time. Anyway, I shall stop there, come up and round off. Now, as I say, they're trialling this in this particular crime, R. And they're doing that because people will think, oh, well, yeah, no, it'd be easier for R. Yeah, it's more acceptable for that in the minds of the general public. But of course it isn't. It's a salami slice. It's that and that and that and that. And they slowly take another piece and another piece and another piece. And it's done so thin, such a tiny cut every time that you don't even notice. They'll extend it from R to SA, to SV, to DV, to this, until eventually nothing. There will be no jury trials. And the establishment will have a quota system and they will say, right, you're guilty. And you've got no way of introducing any kind of doubt and into the minds of a jury. You've got no way of ever, even if you're innocent, you've got no way of ever escaping it because they will have decided that you're guilty, especially if you're like me and you're guilty of telling the truth. You know, I mean, it could be political expediency. Oh, look, that man on YouTube, we don't like him. He keeps telling the truth. Look at the way he's pointing out our foibles over this jury trial stuff. Next thing, they could foist up some false charges. I'm up for a beak. No jury. It's already decided wheel in the guilty bastard. And before I go in there, I know I'm going to go to prison because it is difficult for them. That's the problem. That is what a dictatorship is. Guilty before you even get into the court because you dared to embarrass the government. And that is what it is. It's nothing to do with upping the quota for these trials. They're using that line, that excuse to introduce this, which they can then expand upon it and remove justice for all. I'll stop. Thank you very much for listening. I hope this video has earned a subscription because I think it's very important that you're aware of it. Anyway, until next time, stay safe, stay well, and stay out of trouble. Bye.